good. I'm going out with some friends later. If you want to come. Okay. I'll see you later.
Look, I'll put down my sword, but in return, you gotta let go of the girl.
We'll do it then.
Set, go!
You don't make up for your sins in the church. You do it in the streets. You do it at home. The rest is bullshit and you know it.
Hello, everybody. It is me. It is Mark. I am here, and I'm healthy, which is a lot more than I could say for me for last week. So I have a full, jam-packed show for you this week. So I'm not even gonna mess around. I'm just gonna throw it over the PowerPoint, and we're just gonna get this started. So welcome to Horsehead Wheelie week number 8, and as this is actually a pretty jam-packed show, we gotta go real fast because I need to get through this as quickly as I can, because man, I don't want to be here till 8 or something crazy. You guys would hate me for that. So, starting off, as we always do, let's start looking at last week. And last week, I earned my 4th win of the season, taking out James, who continues to play the exact same way that the Miami Dolphins do. He is also at 4-3, putting up a not very great week for him. Moving on over, we have Dave and Matt S. and 5-1 versus 0-6. That went as would be expected, with Matt S. pulling out the win there. Nick ends up taking out Doug, which was a big help to me, as we were all tied in the division, and that puts me game ahead of Doug. And Gabe ends up going out and picking up his first win of the season, knocking Jerry down to 3-4, thus putting me at the top of my division. Congratulations to Sean. It was a lot of fun sitting there in the chat on Slack, just everyone just rooting for Sean to get those last few points near the end of the Giants game there. That was a lot of fun. So congratulations to Sean. Moving on down, we have Mike versus Matty M, and Mike continues to do the opposite of what the Dolphins do, and he ends up beating Matty M, dealing him his second loss, and keeping himself in that within one game of a playoff spot. And finally, Malcolm and Steve had a bit of a throwdown, and Malcolm, after 3 weeks of just absolute garbage, manages to finally put his team together for something good, and he ends up taking out Steve, putting up a very, very high score in the process. Which brings us to the standings. As I alluded to, I am leading the Skullhouse. Matt M is currently 1 game up on Malcolm, who is 2 games up on James. In Kathy's Kids and the Outsiders, it continues to be Matt M's division. But with that win last week, Mike ends up pulling up a little bit closer to him. So better watch out for that. Mike is coming for you. And finally, we have Nick leading the Insiders, with Steve at sitting around 500, and Gabe looking to make that late season run. He's not out of it yet. He can make the run back if he can string together a bunch of wins. I don't think 6 and 7 making the playoffs is out of the question, with some of these teams being as good as they are. So that is that for those standings. But now for the good standings, the ones that I make every week, because they're just beautiful. Currently in the buys, we have Matt S. sitting alone at the top at 6-1. A couple in 5-2s are sitting at the 2 and 3 spot with Matt M and Nick. Myself, the final division leader, coming in at 4-3. All the division leaders at this point are uncontested. There's no tiebreakers or anything getting them in. It is just strictly they have a better record than their divisional opponents. The wildcard spots are still occupied by Kathy's Kids teams, with Malcolm at 5-2, 2 games away from Steve, who is the 7 seed, and James 1 game up. So right now, real easy cuts. Really, like if the season ended right now, there would be no tiebreakers, no questions as to who's going to be what and where, at least for the upper bracket. And the lower bracket is where it gets very interesting, because we have Steve, Doug, Mike, and Jerry all tied up at 3 and 4 right now, and with the tiebreakers being not completely done because not everyone's played everybody, and with Doug and Tyler and Jerry being in the same division, it's a whole bunch of a mess. So I ended up just kind of throwing them in as best as I could approximate where they would be, with Steve having win over Doug, so he gets over him, Doug having the win over Jerry, so he gets in over him, and Mike not playing anybody ends up just kind of hanging out at the 9 spot, which puts Jerry down at the 10 spot. And number 11 is Gabe, now all by himself at 11, and Dave M still winless, and now the only winless team in the league. Hopefully he can turn that around sometime soon. I'd like to see everyone at least get 1 win. It'd be really rough if he didn't. if there's anybody in the chat, just say hi, just so I can know that my chat's working, because it doesn't always work, and I want to make sure I'm not like rambling to nobody out there right now, just getting everything, just nothing's working or something weird. So anyways, in the standings, we have that. Next up, we have the Eliminator. Yes, that is right, the Eliminator. Everyone's favorite reason for playing, the whole reason everyone's here. And at the top, we have Matt S., who continues to be the lone man without a single strike on the season. After that, there is myself and Nick, who both have 1 strike, and both of those strikes came very early on in the year. So, very easy to just kind of, see that their teams have turned themselves around, gotten better as the season's gone on. Mike, who's been, up and down as the season's gone on, is there with Doug, who honestly has only had 1 good week the entire season. Sorry, Doug. Okay, two. Your first week of the season was good when you beat me. So those are your 2 people with 2 strikes. And then after that, everyone else is dead. Because Matt M. and Steve both eliminated this week. The cut line was below average by a good amount because the bottom 3 were just that far down. So Steve and Matt M., you are eliminated. Doug is handed his 2nd strike, as only 3 were given out last week because there's only 7 people left. And now we are down to 5 people left, which means 2 strikes will be given out next week. If those 2 strikes go to Mike and Doug, then the top 3 will be in a 1 strike per week scenario, and that could be real fun to see how that goes. Other than that, we have, not a lot else to talk about here. So congratulations to the top 5, and best of luck to all of us moving forward. And for those of you who've been eliminated, I'm sorry. That's $50 you're not going to get, but you can still work on the fight for 50. You can still work towards the playoffs and the championships and all the other things that we have going on, incentives. So do not despair. Just because you were out of the eliminator does not mean you were out of the tournament or anything else like that. You're still perfectly alive and able to continue playing. Not liking that no one's talking in chat. I kind of figured somebody would at least show up, but guess not. Guess not. Yeah, there's some people here. I don't know if any of them are actually humans or if they're just bots being sent here to make sure I'm not like streaming something on my channel, but whatever. Moving on, we have the incentives, and as I said before, if you are a green stripe team, that means you were the leader going into the week, and because I didn't do this last week, you're the leader going into the last 2 weeks. So Malcolm was the leader after week 5, and after week 7, he continues to be the leader at quarterback because Patrick Mahomes has been an absolute animal. And if you are the yellow line, that means you're the 2nd place person after week 5, and now you're just whatever you are now. So, for example, Jerry was number 2. He has since dropped down after 2 bad weeks to number 4, as Steve and Madam have eclipsed him. So, I just went over the quarterbacks, so I explained all that, and now for the running backs. For the running backs, we have Matt M. sitting up on top, followed up by Steve. Those 2 continue to be the 1-2 in the league. Both of them continue to have probably 2 of the best backfields. But after Matt M.'s trade, getting rid of Gordon this week, it's going to be very very different at the top of this, I think. I think the running backs are going to that he got in return are the Minnesota running backs, and that might not be as good as Gordon. I don't think they're going to be as good as Gordon. So this could allow Steve to make up some ground on him. I believe Steve has Gurley and a couple other guys who aren't as good, but with Gurley, you still get really big weeks, so best of luck to those 2 on the top. And then after that, you gotta have 60 points back to Mike, so I'm not really gonna worry about that for now until somebody makes a really big move. Moving on to wide receiver, where it is a much closer race. To be within the top 60 or within 60 points of the leader, James, is myself at 20, the leader from 2 weeks ago, Steve, who's now down 34 points. And then Matt S., who is down 37 points, and then Dave, who is clinging within 60 points there, which is kind of like my range of what I really care about for those 2 positions. For tight end, we have Matt M. sitting on top. Myself, after having 1 meh week and 1 good week, but not as good as Doug, he ends up passing me, and he moves into 2nd place, with Nick staying within shouting distance. For defensive linemen, Nick continues to sit atop the leaderboard for that. He is not putting up great numbers right now, allowing Doug to catch up to him, as well as everybody else really. So gaps have been closed on that there, and yeah, a lot going on in that one with about 4 people all still within distance. For linebackers, we have Matt S., Nick, and James, with Nick and James both falling back after a 38-point week being put up by Matt S. Holy Jesus. And then for defensive backs, we have Doug sitting at number 1 still, with Matt M. slipping down a few pegs as there's that little scrum behind the number 1 spot. And but yeah, right now it looks like Doug's trying to run away with it, and he might be able to if he can just put up a couple more good weeks. He might be out of striking distance and earn himself an incentive. Moving on to the fab pickups for this week. This week the big spender was Doug, and Doug threw down $20 for Danny Amendola, the Miami wide receiver. Everyone's clamoring over now that Albert Wilson is on IR. Now that Kenny Stills is hurt, everyone's and Devontae Parker might get traded. We are pulling up like Levante Carew, who honestly, I think he's a fine talent. I haven't ever seen him in a professional game, I don't think, to any like large capacity. And I think that's going to be really cool to see him do it this week. I think I'm really going to enjoy watching him play and see how he does tomorrow night on Thursday Night Football, which I'm really afraid of because I'm afraid he's going to, what he does isn't going to matter because Houston's just going to do whatever they want. But hey, we'll see what happens with that. Next up, we have James, went after Ben Roethlisberger, and Mitch Trubisky also going because those guys were both pretty well-wanted quarterbacks. The big pickup for the running back was Mostert, who has since been traded. So basically, Nick spent $12 of fab on Fuller, and I spent negative $5 of fab to get Mostert, and I dropped Fuller for him. I feel like that's probably fine. I'm not sure if that was a good trade or not. But I definitely think I have 2 other good running back or wide receivers on my team who can fill in for like Jones and Thielen. So I'm just gonna hope that Mostert becomes blows up this week and becomes worth something. And after that, just a lot of other people getting picked up. Chris Hogan getting picked up for some reason. I don't know. I thought he was dead. Davis getting picked up by Matt S., which makes me very sad. Bryant getting picked up by Dave M., making Nick very sad. A lot of people going after Bradley McDonald. McDougald? I guess it's McDougald. But Matt made them all very sad. And finally, I picked up Trenton Cannon after Bilal Powell was hurt. I figured he would be something, and then the news broke right before waivers that he was going to actually be out for the rest of the season. So I upped my bid to $2, and I think I probably had the tiebreaker over James, but I'm not sure. But I'm glad I didn't have to worry about it, and I ended up pulling him in. So this brings us to the remaining budgets. Steve continues to not spend any money or do anything in the league, and sits at $96. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have Nick, who is now at $4, not $9, because he gave me 5 of his dollars, moving me up to 24. So for this week's matchups, a lot of, very similar records, at least 4 games where everyone's within 1 win of each other that are playing each other. And then the other 2 matchups are 5 and 2s versus a combined 1 and 13. So not great on those 2, but the other ones are very good. Myself and Mike are going to be playing, and I think that's going to be a matchup to definitely watch. Didn't make game of the week for obvious reasons, but definitely a very good game to keep your eye on. James and Doug are going to be battling it out. The battle of 2 teams that looked good at the beginning of the season and now have been kind of meh from the last couple of weeks. So let's see which of those teams can get a win here and try to pull it out. I'm rooting for James. Over on the second row, we have Dave versus Malcolm. Dave might be able to get a win this week, but I mean, Malcolm put up a huge number last week, but his previous 3 weeks before that were abysmal. So I'm not entirely sure what Malcolm's team is able to do. Was it a 1-week thing, or was that the return to form? We'll definitely find out this week up against Dave. Sean, can he keep it rolling and take out Matty M, the guy who is almost near the top, who is, up there in that top echelon, the power rankings the last few weeks, and then definitely has a really good team. I'm not thinking that Sean's going to be able to do it, but anything can happen. It's fantasy football. That's just how the world works. We get to a really big game here with Matt S versus Nick. This is probably a battle this could be a battle that decides the tiebreaker for the bye weeks. Like this could easily be, okay, so Nick won this week, so he gets into the playoffs with the bye instead of having to face off in the first round. That could easily be what this is. So this is definitely the most important game of the week. Spoilers, it's the game of the week. And finally, we have Jerry versus Steve, battle of two teams that both need a win, not because if they don't get it, they'll be eliminated, but at 3-4, you definitely don't want to go to 3-5, because at that point, you're kind of looking at maybe, a game, maybe two to give for the rest of the season, and that's just not a good spot to be at. So that is what we're looking at. And as I said earlier, the game of the week is definitely Matt S. versus Nick. These are two teams that are just, they are both putting up, they're both putting up really big numbers. And I don't understand how Nick is doing it, but looking at Matt's team, you can definitely see, he just has a really solid team. He gets, Brown back after last week, which I think is why his team was down a little bit. He missing his best player. Just that's how it works. If you don't have your best player in your team's not going to be as good. So that's why I think Matt S was down last week. I expect him to rebound here. And I think this fight with Nick is going to be absolutely pivotal. It's going to be, a really good match to watch. I don't know if any of them have anybody in the Sunday night game or the Monday night game, but it'll probably come down to one of those two games. It definitely. I think Monday Night Football is actually New England Buffalo, and they both have players in that game. So I think it's going to come down to James White and Josh Gordon, who puts up enough points to get their team over the top. And I think that's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of people in chat are going to be having a good time with that on Monday night, trying to watch that go down. So that brings us to our special segment of the week. The special segment of this week is the mid-season review. The mid-season review is something I do every single year after week 7-ish, because that is the midpoint of the regular season, as we are now halfway through that. And so I just want to go over some stats, some cool stuff that I've noticed, some patterns. Not really going too in-depth on anything because there's a lot I want to go over, but just kind of touching on everything a little tiny bit. And we're going to start off with just some general stats. The average points per game this season has been 140.3, so if you're putting up less than that on a given week, you don't have like a main starter on bye or something like that, then you're probably not doing great. But there's also a large standard deviation of 21.6, so there's a lot of wiggle room around that average for teams to fall. As we tend to, we're not very precise or accurate in how we end up guessing our teams are going to do on any given week. The highest score of the week was 197.1 by James in week 2. Now, a lot of people are probably thinking, man, that probably destroyed whatever the record was. It didn't. The record is still held by Nick. He set the record in, it was 2014. It was the Yahoo year. And he set the record with, our lineup and kicker and defense instead of the 4 IDPs we have now, putting up like over 200 points. It is, I think it's just going to sit there for the rest of time. I really honestly don't think that record is going to be broken, but hey, for now, congratulations to Nick. You kept your record so far this year. But also congratulations to James for putting up such a humongous number of 197.1 points this particular week. And the low score was actually 2 weeks ago by Malcolm with 91.2. He is the only person to be under 100 points for any given week. So the opposite of kudos to you, Malcolm. You suck. Some more stats. The best win, or rather the worst win, so the lowest points scored by the winner, was 125 points by Jerry, week 2, to beat me. And in the best loss category, we have Doug, who week 6 put up 174.3 points, only to lose to Matt M, which is the new record. The previous record was only 135.6, so he absolutely destroyed it. So congratulations to Doug on being the person with the highest score in a loss. Not something you really want, but hey, it's something. At least you won that. And in the closest match of the year was a 1-point difference between Matt M and Jerry. I tried to find the record in the league for that. I know there was something that was less than a point at some time, but if I can't find it tomorrow, because I looked through a couple different years and I couldn't track it down. If I can't find it tomorrow, I'm just going to give this the record and put a little asterisk next to it and just say, there was something else out there. I'm sorry I can't find it. But for now, that is the closest win of the season. Moving on to other stats in the Eliminator. People left in the Eliminator is 5. The average score to survive in any given week so far has been 130.7, but with only 5 people left and 2 people getting a strike this week, I'm assuming that's going to be up near 150, as the average score always tends to climb as people are eliminated from the bottom. And there's somewhere between 4 and probably 6 weeks left. It's hard for me to come up with a situation that drags it out more than 7 weeks, so I'm just going to predict 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think it's going to be a perfect. It's going to go perfectly, just like to the longest one. But yeah, so that's going on with that, which should end about the same time as the playoffs begin, which is perfect because that's what you want. You don't want the Eliminator looming over people's heads while people are also trying to worry about other stuff, because the playoffs are more important. There's more money in it. I love the Eliminator, but that's just how it works. Now for some transactions. So I made this little chart that shows how many times teams have made trades, how many times teams have added people, and how many times people have moved a player into their IR spot. So far there have been 41 trades, because each trade involves 2 teams, and there's been 82 teams that have team trades. So divide that in 2, you get 41. That does include a couple of like 3-way trades and stuff like that went on early, like really early on in the season. That may inflate that number a little bit, but for the most part, I think it's probably around 40, 41. In the ads column, we have had 208 ads, with the most going to Malcolm, most trades going to Mike, and the most IR spot movements has gone to the team Tiger, Tyler and Jerry, with 7. That's 2 more than most people. No, 1 more than James, so not too far ahead of anybody else. And there's been 36 times that somebody's been put in an IR slot. Some teams, like Nick, has 1 because he put Bell in it, and Bell's been sitting there the whole year. I hate you, Nick. Moving on to other things about transactions, Doug and Steve have only made 11 transactions each. That is trades and ads. Meanwhile, Malcolm and Matt S have both, as individuals, beaten them. And Malcolm, in just ads, not even including trades, and Malcolm has had 38 total transactions. So if we were still playing with the rules from a couple years ago, where every transaction was $1, I think is what it was. It was something like $1.50 or something like that. Malcolm would be paying a lot of money into the league for pizza, and that would have been awesome. But we don't live close enough to each other, so sadly we can't have pizza parties whenever somebody decides to go on a spending spree with Fab and all that. Speaking of Fab and all that, it's almost like I planned it. We have the ads, Fab spent, Fab left, and total Fab for the season. And it's really interesting because Malcolm has made the most ads, yet he still has a decent amount of Fab left at 61. But if you add his Fab left with the amount of Fab he spent, his total Fab is 120 for the season, which means he's definitely been making some trades to acquire Fab. Where on the other end of it, Mike has 69 total Fab because he's only spent 13 Fab and yet is down to almost 50 Fab left. So he's definitely on the other end of it, where he's spending Fab to upgrade players in trades, and Malcolm is spending players to accrue more Fab, or maybe he's just willing and dealing better. And he's saying, well, these players are so close, why don't you just give me a little bit of Fab here, a little there? And he's slowly building up his the amount of Fab he has, so he can have spent, a lot of Fab, like a ton of Fab. 59 is still a lot. I think that's the 4th most Fab in the league, and yet he still has 61 Fab, which is in the top half. So good for you, Malcolm. You're definitely working the system and doing good stuff with it. Yeah, so that's really cool. And this also doesn't account for the fact that Nick gave me 5 Fab, so he's actually down at 85, and I'm up at 92 for total Fab. So with all that being said, other things about waivers, the most expensive player so far has been me picking up Smallwood for $40. The best $0 I ever spent award goes to Kiko Alonso to James, as Kiko has been a top 5 linebacker all season, and James picked him up for $0 in week 2, I think, or week 1, something like that. It was really early on in the season, and he's been absolutely crushing it. So good job for Kiko, good job for James. And as I said earlier, 208 ads have been made. Half of the fab total has been spent. If you were checking out the charts and stuff like that, you did some quick math, you notice that I think it's like $51 per person left. It's something around those lines. And the average fab spent per player is $2.83. So every time someone picks up a player, that's the average of what they're spending. So if you want to be above average, you spend $3 on somebody. So if there's a guy you like really want, maybe throw $3 at him instead of 0. I don't know. Just a thought. In regards to trades, as I said earlier, there's about 41, and trades made by Mike has been 19, which means the average trade does contain half of a Mike being involved on average. So that's interesting. Very active this year with trades, I'm guessing. Speaking of being active in trades, T.Y. Hilton has been traded 4 times, beaten only by Sammy Watkins, who's been traded 5 times. And if you don't remember that there are 2 different Cooks in the league, then when you type in Cook and search for it, you will find that Dalvin Cook and Jared Cook have been traded a total of 6 times total. So if you make them into one person, then that would be an abomination unto God. But you'd also have somebody who's been traded 6 times in our league. So, that's not nothing. That's not nothing. Moving on, we have the beer bets. So this is a section of just me going over every beer bet and where it stands as of now. For the first beer bet, it was Alfred Morris, and that was Malcolm and Gabe's, outscoring Matt, Breida, Mark, and Nick. Alfred Morris so far this season has put up 38.9 points, and Matt Breida has put up 76.5 points, making Matt Breida the leader right now by about double. So that's really good, and it looks pretty good for Mark and Nick. But hey, Matt Breida is also hurt, and we really don't know what's going on in that backfield at this particular moment. So, that's just how that sits right now. Speaking of not liking Matt Breida, Malcolm decided to double down on not liking him, taking a bet against Jerry, saying Carlos Hyde would have more points than Matt Breida. And that was a really close one going into this week with a difference of 2.4 points, Matt Breida being ahead. And you know what, Malcolm? That trade might have got you to buy Jerry some beer. Because as of right now, Hyde is in a weird situation with, 3 players all competing for touches and stuff like that, which is, the exact same thing Matt Breida's in, but Matt Breida's also hurt. So, I don't know. I think this is definitely going to be a close one, but I think the trade might be the thing that puts you over the edge and makes you have to pay a lot of money in beer for Breida's. But I think Hyde definitely is a much safer bet than the Elf one. Moving on to the next one, one of my personal favorites. It is Le'Veon Bell outscores Todd Gurley. This is something that Nick threw down even when he knew the holdout was going on. He was like, "Yeah, no, Le'Veon Bell's gonna come back. I'll even give you a week, basically, blah blah blah." And then we're still waiting. He's gonna be back Wednesday, right? Which Wednesday was it? I thought it was a Wednesday in August that you were talking about at first, and now we're almost at Halloween. Halloween's a Wednesday. Maybe he'll come back for Halloween. He'll come dressed as somebody who cares about his job. Who knows? But yeah, so that. Basically, that's not going well for Nick. The next one is another absolutely phenomenal beer bet. Dalvin Cook finishes top 12 from week 4 on. Jerry bet against himself for that one. If it's top 12, he'll buy himself a 6-pack of high-quality beer. And if not, he will buy a 30-pack of Bud Light, and he has to actually drink it all as per Malcolm's stipulation. And, Dalvin Cook has so far put up 2 points between weeks 4 through 7, and he is not expected to play until week 11 at this point. A lot of people are saying that he's going to wait until after the bye week to come back, and he's going to split touches with Murray, and we'll see how that one goes. So that's your little news nugget. But in other news, I'm thinking Jerry's gonna be drinking some Bud Light, and that's not gonna make him happy. So maybe we can just forget this one happened. In a non-fantasy football beer bet, Mike bet that the Jets will finish above the Dolphins in the division. I took him on that bet, and as of right now, the Jets are 3-4 and have lost to Miami. So Miami has the head-to-head at the moment. They play again in I think 2 weeks. And for Miami, they are 4-3, and they have the Brock Lobster going on right now. And who doesn't love some Brock Lobster? So yeah, there we have that. And then Gabe's and Doug both chimed in immediately after this being made, this deal being struck, saying that it was easy pizza for Mike, and there's no reason why Mark should have taken that trade. It's just gonna be, it's just not gonna go anywhere for it. And guess what? Yeah, it's looking pretty good for Mark right now until, we fall apart inevitably and play the hard part of our schedule at the end of it. But who's counting? Who's counting any of that? Not me. I'm counting on us going to the Super Bowl and being the world champions because we're the Miami Dolphins and we're number one. And that brings us to this week's sponsor. This week's sponsor is the CJ ProSize Concise device. It works. So at the end of the midseason review, I just want to look at the Week 1 power rankings, the post-draft power rankings, if you will, and just see how that ends up working. At number 1, I had James, and James, he did pretty good at the start of the season, as you would expect. Mike was number 2, and his team never has quite put up the numbers, but a lot of people have said it's a very powerful team, it's a very strong team, it's got a lot of very good players. Jerry, number 3, but some injuries and stuff had derailed him and knocked him down. Mark at number 4 had to make a lot of changes to his team, but he has since climbed back up and is back up in that range again. Matt M at number 5, he's been really good this season. He was a little bit low on these rankings to start the season, I think. Gabe's at number 6, had a couple players that just absolutely tanked on him. It's not really his fault. I think his team was fine, and he just didn't end up getting any breaks his way. Same thing with Dave at number 7. They both just kind of fell apart. Malcolm at number 8 is probably right. And then Patrick Mahomes played a single game of football, and I was just, oh my God, he just shot up the ranks. Lately, not being great, but, still doing his thing up down there. And then Steve, not really sure what happened after the draft because his team just kind of went off and was just killing it for a little bit there, so that was clearly not right. And then Matt S. and Nick, both of them have had pretty good teams so far this season as they are playing in the game of the week this week. And then Doug at number 11, he had 2 good weeks this year, and then the rest of his weeks have just not been good, below average. So yeah, his team definitely, seems to be fine at number 11, considering the fact that also he's only done 11 ads or trades, and talking to him and trying to get him to trade is like pulling teeth, and it's your teeth, and you're also under anesthesia. That's how difficult it is. Doug, I'm talking to you right now through the screen. Loosen up. It'll be fine. Make the deals. And that brings us to this week's rankings. That's right. This week's rankings are the spooky edition of rankings. Because what's going on in a week? Halloween. And because Halloween falls on a Wednesday, I will not be broadcasting. I will be out handing out candy to all the little kids in Albany. All the little Albany kids run around there, costumes and stuff like that. They're really cute. They're awesome. I mean, it's one of the great things about living in the city from living out in the country. You actually get trick-or-treaters, and we literally will get several hundred trick-or-treaters to our house. We should get like a tally board or something and try to keep track because it's crazy. So if I'm going to do a Halloween spooky edition, I got to do it this week. So this week's rankings are the spooky edition, and we're going to start off with jump scares. Oh, yeah. What's better than a jump scare? Well, the other 3 classes, that's what. And this is a picture of me going to a costume party. I got my little cat ears, my little dead cat with the clothes on and stuff, and my little fingerless gloves. I think I look pretty darn cute in this picture. I got my lipstick on. I think I look great, honestly. 10 out of 10. But yeah, so jump scares. I wish I could play that video again. That was good lightning. But So instead of just playing that for the rest of the time, what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to play a little bit of ambiance music. Little spooky music. Ooh, some spookiness. Yeah. How's that? How's those levels? That's probably fine. Those are probably. Yeah. Yeah, that's probably much better. All right, little ambiance in the background, and we're gonna start at the bottom, and we're gonna start off with Dave. Dave was number 11 last week, and his last 3 weeks he only put up 120 points per week, which is good for dead last in the league. And yeah, I don't really know what to say at this point. I really don't like what you got going on with a lot of your positions. I think you traded for Ebron right before he started to not be Ebron anymore, because, you know, we were getting Doyle back and stuff like that. Ty might be healthy again, and I think the reason he was doing so good is because those guys weren't around to take targets away, and now Luck is able to just spread the ball around more. I also don't think that team's going to be great with Luck, because Luck is going to, you know, he's going to fall off. He's got the whole thing with he's throwing 50 times per game, and with somebody coming off of a major shoulder injury that kept him off the field for 2 years, I don't think that's what they want him to be doing. So I think they're going to try to tailor it back now that they got Mac around. And they're just going to be feeding Mac the rock and just hoping that they can keep Luck healthy so we can take them to the playoffs when they inevitably make it, because that division is just absolute dog doo-doo. Looking at the rest of your team, like, you got Tyler Boyd, John Brown, Emmanuel Sanders, a bunch of number 2s on their team as your guys. And yeah, that's fine for now. I mean, Emmanuel Sanders has a great matchup this week. He's been fine out in Denver. Tyler Boyd, you know, again, he's a number 2, but when your number 1's AJ Green, you're going to get some good looks and stuff. And then John Brown, he might be the number 1, but really, is anyone a number 1 in Baltimore? I think they're all number 2s in Baltimore. Then your running backs are like Peterson, who's old and probably going to start breaking down eventually. He has to, right? He's got to. And then you got Corey Clement, who's going into a 3-headed monster nonsense. I mean, there's just not a lot to like about your team until, you know, you get back Cooper Kupp. But even then, it's still going to be spooky. So for now, Dave, you sit down at number 12. At number 11, we have Gabe's. And Gabe, you move up to number 12 because you had a decent week last week. You got your first win, so you definitely deserve not to be last. You're actually tied for 7th with 2 other people in the last 3 weeks, so at 131 points. So that's really good. You got AJ Green's bye done, I believe, at this point. If not, you have like a really great matchup this week regardless, up against Tampa Bay. I mean, you have a lot of really good matchups coming up. You have good players on your team. It's just, I'm just not really loving your team yet, just because you got a lot of players on it that aren't good. I mean, you just need to ditch Alex Smith and pick up somebody at quarterback who can throw the football well. You can trade for somebody. A lot of people got 2 people. David Johnson looked like he was back, and then he isn't. I mean, I don't know what you have to do, but best of luck to you, Gabes. You need it. You just kind of at this point. But you're not last anymore, so, you know, that's something. Moving up to number 10, we have James, who's been an absolute free fall since he was at number 1. He sat there for a couple weeks and then slowly drifted down. Now he is down at number 10. Last 3 weeks, he's put up only 123 points, which is good for 11th. And a lot of that is on the back of, you know, yeah, he had a couple buys for really good people, like, you know, Cook and Schuster were out for a bit there. Chris Thompson was hurt. Alvin Kamara had a bye week in there, and then was also bad another week in there because they were just like, let's just give the ball to Ingram a million times and welcome him back because it's week 4. So there are reasons why his team hasn't been performing as of late. What I want to see is this going to be a team that can rebound from that, or is this a team that's going to just kind of fall apart? Because if you can, you know, make a deal where you can split up Kamara or Hill or, you know, one of your higher end people and get a replacement for that guy and then something else for value, you might be able to start restructuring this team and rebuilding it. But for now, you have the talent to have a good team. They're just not showing it yet, all in the same week. So we'll see what happens. But James, for now, you're sitting at number 10. And that's it for that bottom tier. Those are the 3 teams that I really look at and I'm just like, man, you guys just aren't really performing right now. I feel bad doing it to James because he's got talent. He definitely has a lot of talent. But for now, he just has to sit down there until he can get his team to start producing numbers again. Which brings us to the B class of public speaking, which is something that a lot of people have a fear about. Obviously, I don't, because I just talk to you guys for 2 hours every day, or once a week. So yeah, there's that. Moving on to number 9, then we have Jerry. Jerry is in that little group of people tied for 7th place in the last 3, and last week he was at number 10, so he does move up a little bit here, mostly on the back of some maneuvering by one Tyler, who has stepped in as the GM. And he went out and he grabbed Melvin Gordon from somebody who was in a really good position with his team, didn't need to make the trade, and then made the trade by sending him a bunch of people who don't add up to be Melvin Gordon's value. So I'm not entirely sure if it was just a deep discount because Melvin Gordon was hurt and they were afraid of him like having an injury that lingers throughout the season. I don't really want to like guess as to how what was going on with that, but looking at this situation, I just don't like that trade. I think it was very lopsided for Jerry and Tyler, but hey, he accepted it, so that's how it works out. So onto the team. They put up, okay numbers last week, and a lot of that was on the back of, C.J. Mosley just kind of doing C.J. Mosley's things. He went out and he picked up Mitch Trubisky, which is really good because this week Drew Brees plays outdoors in cold weather. Minnesota's indoors now, right? Yeah, Minnesota's always been indoors. What am I talking about? Still, Drew Brees is going someplace that isn't his home, and that is not good for him lately. For some reason, I don't know if it's like an old guy thing or what, but he's starting to not be, that 30 points a week guy anymore. And he's also got some other guys like Lamar Miller, who, if he gets all the touches, is going to be good, but if they end up doing some other nonsense with like, maybe Will Fuller is, running through the backfield doing jet sweeps and bubble screens and stuff like that to Hopkins. I don't know what they're going to do, but this is what we got going on right now with Jerry's team, and it's just spooky, dude. So best of luck to you with it. I think I just need to see it one more week be good, and then I'll move you up a bunch. Because you still have people like Adams, who was on bye last week. You have Jimmy Graham and Drew Brees and stuff like that. And now you have Melvin Gordon, who fills up that running back slot. But I don't know. You just have a lot going on that I'm just feeling weird about, and I don't want to just keep dwelling on that. So I'm going to move on to Malcolm. Malcolm also moved up a slot. He moved on up to number 8. He probably should have moved up more. Definitely could have moved up more. Because of the fact that he now has Chubb and Hyde as potential starters instead of just one of them. And Chubb looked really good in his first week out for the little bit that I saw of it. Mack ended up going out there and absolutely killing it in his first week out. Really when they kind of let the reins go and they said, hey, go ahead, do whatever you want, kid. And he ended up crushing it. Now, is that a one-week thing? He has a big, extensive injury history, so that's what I'm worried about there. If I can see Chubb and Mack go off again this week, if they're both good again, and they're both putting up consistent numbers this week against the 2 defenses they're going against, away from home and all that, then Malcolm is going to rebound. He's going to start bouncing back up because he was up at the top and then he fell down to the bottom, and then he could be definitely on an upswing again now. His defense is still great, and he still has Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. Maybe that wide receiver 2 slot could use a little bit of an upgrade. I'm not sold on Geronimo Allison being a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the season, but he's still Geronimo Allison, so I think as the season progresses for Green Bay and Rodgers gets more and more comfortable, this team's going to get better, and I really do think that Malcolm's going to end up being a team that you see ratchet up as the season goes on, and he's going to continue to get better. So 1 slot this week, just this week though. And if I see it again from Chubb and Mack, and I see something decent out of Allison, I'm definitely going to try to move you back up a little bit more. At number 7, we have Steve. Last week he was at number 5, and he's continuing to slip down from his heights. I believe he also reached number 1 at one time in the bar rankings. This is, just because he basically lost Breida last week, and I think Breida might be one of those people who consistently is injured and might even lose their job at this point. Mostert's looking pretty good. Or maybe he won't lose his job. Maybe he'll keep it at 50-50 split. I'm not entirely sure what they're going to do with Breida at this point. But looking at how he's, been playing, it's injured. And I don't like people who play injured because it tends to mean that they're going to get injured again. I mean, he still has Matt Ryan, Gurley, the wide receiver core is stacked, Olsen, still Greg Olsen. And I'm assuming as that schedule gets easier after this week, because Carolina's schedule gets a lot easier after this week, in any other leagues that you have that people aren't watching this, go out, buy Carolina Panthers because they have a sweet, sweet schedule the rest of the season. But yeah, and then, your defense has still got really good people on it. You have people on your bench who can produce, like, Cobb isn't dead yet. I mean, he's on that borderline, but he's not dead yet. You have Rudolph, who's, can fill in if Olsen's not doing anything great. And then you have, like, Ridley and Gore and Ivory. So you have people who can do stuff on your team. Maybe you just need to, Again, I just want you to show me. You're putting up good numbers. Your team's got talent. Just show me. Or go out and do something. Like, I know people would kill for Gurley because Gurley is Gurley. Like, he's just that good. He's just insane. I think he's the second highest scoring player in the league, including quarterbacks, behind only Patrick Mahomes, because Mahomes is just an absolute beast. So, hey, maybe field some phone calls about Todd Gurley and say, hey, I'll take another top 5 running back, and, I'll also take a top 20 running back for Todd Gurley. That could definitely get you into a much better position with that running back 2 spot. But for now, that's all I got to say about you. And the A-Class is one of the scariest things I've ever seen is people who do Fortnite dances IRL. I didn't think it was a thing, and then I saw it, and it's just weird, and I don't like it. I really don't like it. People just stop. Just stop. And that brings us to number 6, and Doug. Doug moves up a position because he continues to put up decent points. And he did it last week without Rodgers and without one of his top running backs, and Chris Carson. Well, at least for this week, one of his top running backs, Chris Carson. His flex normally Chris Carson, as Sony Michel and Ezekiel Elliott both played very poorly last week, and both of them got hurt. Michelle got hurt and Zeke's now on a bye. There it is. I figured it out. So he ends up going out and picking up, now that he's having these big running back problems with Michelle down, Zeke on a bye, and he's got like Carson and Cohen filling in for those spots. He goes out and he tacks on the waiver wire his problem, and he picks up Danny Amendola, who's a wide receiver and doesn't actually solve the problem at all. Doug, you baffle me. You don't make a lot of moves in this league, and when you do, it's stuff like that. God bless you, kid. But yeah, so for now, Doug, just think for a second here. You have good talent on your team, you have good players and all that type of stuff. I mean, you have Cooks, DT, Funches, Robbie Anderson, Keenan Allen already. Why are you going out and getting Danny Amendola? Why are you going out and picking up a wide receiver on a team that is my favorite team, but still they got, I don't think Amendola is the person who's going to, fix the world. They're just going to double team him from now on because he's the only player who can catch a ball on the team. I don't know, man. I don't know. It's what you're doing is spooky, and yeah, that's why you're at number 6 because you're putting up numbers, and I like your team. I don't know. It's just weird. I probably should have you below Malcolm, but I had to put Malcolm in his place down there, so that's where you're going to sit at number 6. At number 5, we have the person you were tied with for 4th in the last 3 weeks at 143 points. It is Matt S. Last week he was number 6, and he moves up 1 spot to number 5. Yeah, that move is because you have, you just have a good team. I think James White is going to benefit a lot if Sony Michel is out. So those 25 points from last week, you can expect it again this week, especially up against a Buffalo team who is absolute garbage. You have the best wide receiver in football in Antonio Brown on your team. You have Robert Woods, who's also very good. I mean, you just have a lot of really good players on your team. Now, you also have some weaknesses, like you have a flex spot that's got a lot of people on it, which is good, but none of them are really standouts. So as long as you're playing the matchups well and you can look at it and say, oh, this is a great week for Jordan Howard because the Jets are bad against running backs, or oh, this is a great week for Tevin Coleman because he's playing up against Tampa Bay. Like, if you can find those really good matchups and exploit them, then I think you're going to be fine with that flex. It's just you got to be able to make sure that you can hit on them week after week after week, because you're going to have somebody who comes in at a wide receiver 2, running back 2 every week with those guys. But for now, I like you at number 5, and I think you're a team that's probably going to sit around there until you make a move or two, because I don't see your team having that real splash potential like some of the teams above you. And then there's Nick. I don't like having Nick at 4. I just keep looking at his team and being like, this team's not supposed to be good. Alex Collins isn't supposed to be good. James Conner's not supposed to be good. Tom Brady's supposed to be old and dead. Josh Gordon's fine. Like, I predicted he was going to have a decent year this year, but now he's on New England, and that's it. Odell's Odell, so I'm not going to touch that one. But then you have, like, O.J. Howard as your tight end, and Sammy Watkins as your wide receiver in your flex, and Buck Allen and Christian Kirk, Ito Smith. Like, no one I look at on your team excites me besides Odell. And that's not a good thing. And yet, you're coming out week after week putting up big numbers because you have, the defensive rookie of the year at linebacker. You have J.J. Watt, who is apparently decided he wants to be J.J. Watt again as your defensive lineman. You have Jamal Adams as your safety, who's apparently just the best thing this year. And then Avery Williamson as your defensive player, pulling it up as being the 7th best linebacker. Like, yeah, IDP, dude. You have a great IDP. I don't get it. That's not, it still hurts. It just still hurts. I'm sorry. I just still don't like it. I still don't like it. I know that we have to move into 2018 with our teams, and we have to look at them and say, yeah, no, you got to be good. You have to have a high number of good IDPs. You can't just be sitting there with your 4 dudes you picked up at the end of the draft, and you're just gonna roll with them. God, it just hurts. I need to remember this for next season when I'm drafting. This season, my whole draft strategy actually was pick up really good IDPs and see if I can make it work. And then I picked up 4 dudes, so I was like, oh, these will all be great IDPs, and then none of them panned out at all. And so now I'm just picking from the scrap heap. So I don't know. Maybe it was unlucky. I don't know. Anyways, Nick, good for you. You got what you wanted, whatever. And then finally, we have Spooky Scary Skeletons, as performed by Gabe the dog, as our S-Class. I just freaking love this dog. Alright, that was Spooky Scary Borks, as performed by Gabe the dog. Glad everyone sat through that. That was a good 30 seconds. And at number 3, we have Matt M., who is tied for first over the last 3 weeks with 158 points. He's putting up really good points, and it seems really good. I mean, but the reason that I have him at number 3 rather than at number 2, which is where I had him earlier in the day, is because, before the trade at least, I don't like the trade that he made with Tyler, and I don't want to harp on it again. I said my piece about it. I just don't think that, Dalvin Cook, he's going to be out till week 11. Latavius Murray's playing well, but when they're all together at the end of the season, are they going to be splitting time? What's going to be happening with that? And I don't think the other pieces that he got out of the deal, like your Doug Baldwins and stuff like that, is enough to add up to what he gave away, which was one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. So, for that, Matt, I had to penalize you. I had to knock you down to number 3. But otherwise, I really like your team. You have a lot of people on the bench that would be starting for other people's teams, like LaShawn McCoy. I think he could definitely be starting for another team if he was healthy, that is. With the concussion, he's not starting for anybody, including the Bills. You have a really good linebacker. All of your IDPs are looking pretty solid right now. You just have a lot of really good stuff going on your team, including like Zach Ertz and stuff. So I really don't want to knock your team a bunch, but at the same time, I don't want to praise it because you still have some holes you have to fill, which probably is what you're trying to do in that deal. You were trying to get a wide receiver 2 instead of just having this 1-2 beastly tandem at running back. So now you could have Tate and Baldwin. Those two are a good 1-2 punch. And I think, who else do you have a wide receiver on your entire team? Do you not own another wide receiver? You only have 2 wide receivers on your team. Dang. All right. Give me a call. But yeah, no. So this is this is a fine team, and it definitely deserves to be the S class. It's definitely putting up really good numbers, and it'll be interesting to see how it looks at the end of the season, with you doing things like throwing Dalvin Cook and Latavius Murray maybe as your running back 2 in flex. We'll see what happens with that. At number 2, I had to put myself. I could put myself at number 1 because I don't think my team is the number 1 team in the league. I think that definitely goes to Mike. Spoilers. But for now, I think I am number 2. Last week I was number 3, so I moved up 1 spot, and I am currently tied with Matt M for first place for the most points over the last 3 weeks, averaging 158 points per week. I'm riding the James train because I think he's going to be really good. I think he's going to be good the rest of the season. It's just I think Cam has a couple of bad matchups over the last few weeks and this week. So James has been doing really good stuff for me. Drake has finally come out of his cage and he's doing just fine. I'm not entirely sure that's what he's doing or not, but that's what I have him at right now. So he's sitting at number in my running back slot for this week. My other running back is Saquon Barkley, doing Saquon Barkley things. We all watched it last week in Monday Night Football. He's good. My wide receivers are Thielen and Jones, both of which are I think top, definitely both top 10 guys. Maybe you could argue top 6 guys, maybe. Not entirely sure. Julio's got to catch a touchdown eventually, right? He can't go the whole season without it. He's literally second in the league in receptions and yards and stuff like that, but can't manage to catch one in the touchdown area. I can't figure it out. George Kittle's a good tight end. I got Carrion, Aaron Jones if he ends up breaking out. I got Mostert instead of Fuller now. Trenton Cannon, who's just just a dude. Who knows? Maybe he'll be great. Gabriel. I got a bunch of guys on my bench who could blow up or could end up being garbage. We'll see. But I like my team. I think my team deserves to be number 2, and we'll see what happens. I like to make myself number 1 next week, but I have to put up a really big score, and I have to beat Mike to do it. If I beat Mike, I'm going to put myself at number 1 next week. I don't care what you guys say. I think I'll have earned it by then. But number 1 is Mike, the team I'm playing against this week. And over the last 3 weeks, even though his team is absolutely star-studded, absolutely bonkers, just nonsense good, he only sits at tied for 7th for points for the last 3 weeks. Now, he has had to deal with some bye weeks in there and some injuries to some big players. For example, Gronk didn't play last week. But still, I really think this is just the best team in the league. Watson had a bad week last week, yes, but he was also playing against a really good defense on the road with an injury where he couldn't even take the plane to the stadium because it was hurting him so much. Then you have 2 top 10 running backs. They're not there for points, but I think they're definitely there for talent and everything like that, and they can convert that. You have Michael Thomas and DeAndre Hopkins, who are both absolutely cuckoo bananas good. Gronk, who everyone was saying is number 1 tight end going into this week or into this season. Your defensive players are good. Nothing to write home about, but they're also not going to hold you back. And you have Phil Lindsay, Royce Freeman, Gio, D.D. Westbrook, Mike Williams. You have a bunch of players on your team that you can definitely do good stuff with. when it comes to the flex spot. So, I think this is just the best team in the league for now. And for that, I'm just going to call it there. So I will see you guys next week. It was a lot of fun doing this for y'all. It's always a good time. And I hope that you guys all enjoyed it as well. As I said before, I will be back next week on Thursday to do another episode of this for you guys. But yeah, I really do, I really do enjoy this stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy it too. It's just a good time for everybody, I think. So enjoy your day, everybody, and I don't know if Malcolm's gonna go and play himself some football or something, or COD or something after this. Maybe he can jump over there. But for now, I bid you guys adieu, and have a great night, everybody. Thanks for watching. I didn't stop the stream before I did that.